what if your target, or what if you want to target somebody that's not in your, in your demographic, or somebody that you can directly relate to, but you know that your product, service, whatever can actually serve those people? How do you go about finding out information about that group?
For me, in my platform, and how that has been relevant for me, is I will become visible and try to identify maybe a pain point. That can be something that will attract listeners of all kinds. So if I can, who struggles with their sleep? Who is stuck in a brain fog? That can be a broad audience. And I can guarantee I've had people in their 20s that have reached out going, I can't sleep at night. Like I'm struggling with that. And so that message, just identifying, again, it goes back to knowing what my product is going to do, or my service is going to provide. That's clear. I know what it can do. So getting the message out, sometimes it's just identifying with, I believe, the pain point. What is that message that somebody's going to hear that they're going to be relevant to? And I'll tell you, Brian, that's a really good question to ask, because in that, and doing exactly what I said, just throwing something out that might be just more of a general pain point, a service, throwing something out like that, I'll find a demographic that's hiding that I didn't even know was out there. And that's a good example that I just gave, because I didn't realize that there were 20-somethings that were struggling with their sleep. Initially, I thought that might be somebody more in my age group, my age bracket, but not necessarily in a younger age group. But you throw that out there and you're like, whoa, I didn't even realize this is a very relevant conversation for somebody. So sometimes you happen up on it. But it does make me realize that just having the conversation and identifying some pain points that people may have, that may be relevant to whatever product it is that you have, can be a really good way to kind of hone that in.
Gotcha. So you go into a group, say like on Facebook or something. How do you enter into that conversation? I mean, because you can't just throw out the question, hey, who's having trouble sleeping? And the people who are connected to you through your personal Facebook, or even through your business, they already know you. So if you're going to these new groups, how do you even enter into that conversation to start being able to pull some of those people out, to identify them?
I will actually, because I have gone through my profile and I've really cleaned it up, and I know clearly what my messaging is. I'm not branding my company. I'm branding myself. I'm branding what I have the ability to do. I happen to have a product that can help, but you don't go to my timeline and actually even know what company I'm with, because
True.
I want to be that person that like, and trust. But what I do, and I think the best way to think about it, so, to the point in your question, how do you do that on, say, Facebook or social media when you're in groups? So finding targeted groups, I definitely know that I might want to find somebody that's in that fitness world, or that's health minded. So there's people that are going to be health minded or looking for health solutions in different groups. So typically what I do is I will find those groups, and you can search, there's thousands and thousands of different types of groups. So find one, or go in several, and find if that's kind of your vibe in that group. If you like the conversation that's happening. I've gone in groups before and I'm like, yeah, this wasn't what I was hoping for. But there's other groups that are in, that have a lot of value to give. And I think the way for you to stand out is when I know what I have. I know what I have as a product. I know that it's relevant for so many people. But what I'll end up doing is go inside the group and just kind of hang out there for a couple weeks, and then get clear on the conversation that group's going to be kind of, I hate to overuse this word today, but I'm using it a lot, vibing. Right. What are they vibing with? And then start giving value. Don't go in and start to just farm and target people necessarily, but literally start to give value and throw something that might be just a generic valuable piece in there, and then throw some more content. And as people start resonating with you, I do this all the time. Like if somebody's liking something or commenting on something, if I give value in a group, I'll go over and, I'll maybe drop them a message. Hey, thanks so much for interacting, and hey, just took a look at your timeline. Cool. You live in California. I love California. I'm on the West Coast too, just
Right.
start connecting, having conversations. That's where that authenticity comes, where you can develop those connections. And then, then you send them a friend request, and then, you go on their timeline and you start looking, you're like, hey, I like this person. And I like the conversation they have. And, hey, they have a family too, or, whatever it is,
Right.
that you can relate to, connect to. And I think in a social media platform, especially, that's a wonderful way to make connections with people. But I don't go in groups and start dropping my website. I mean, that's the fastest way to get kicked out of something. But I think that, in business in general, even when you think about the scope of an avatar, when it all comes down to it, I think the most successful marketers are people that are relatable. And it comes down to relationships. And so I think the neatest thing that you can really do with whatever product it is that you have is that I think that long-term relationships, there's this amazing book out there called The Game of Networking. And it's written by a friend of mine, Rob Sperry, and he's literally talking about long-term relationships in business in general are hugely effective. Those are things that can take you 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And I think you want to think about that long-term when you're marketing anything, so that, you're relevant to somebody based off your relationship with them. You sometimes can have an ebb and flow in life where you're in one business and maybe 10 years down the road, you're in a different business, but you have found your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. You have found that tribe. You found that avatar. You found that demographic for whatever product it is that you're promoting at that time. And maybe it's something you're going to promote for the rest of your life. But whatever that is, you've developed relationships and connections. And I think that's a really important piece of it. And Brian, I know you and I've talked about this a little bit before, but I think it's relevant to this conversation that when you do that well and you can market yourself well, I know I've been, speaking and doing some trainings, and people notice me in social media, but now we get to the point where people will come up and they will, been following me, or I don't even know who these people are. So maybe we're not even friends, but they're following me. And I think, you're doing something well when people come to you and say, oh my gosh, I love your Great Dane. I love those posting. It's so fun to watch you guys traveling or doing whatever it is. They feel like they know me.
Yeah.
And that's when you're getting your message out right, is that, people feel like they know you completely, like they're connected, even though you don't know them. You know what I mean?
I do.
Conversation.
Yeah, I do. It's funny because you mentioned the travel part.